everyone, it's Katie from Paradise Falls family. In this video we'll be taking you through our recent trip to Bruges in Belgium in December 2022. We booked this as a quick city break to experience the Christmas markets, and it turned into one of the best shop breaks we've ever done. We've done quite a few European Christmas market trips over the years, and we find it's a great way to see a new city with plenty to entertain the kids. We'll give you an overview of what we did and how we spent our time, then we'll go through some of the more practical bits and what went into planning our trip. Our journey started on Thursday afternoon as we drove from the northwest of England down to Folkestone. We managed to do the journey in just under 5 hours. Not much fun, but as a family we're really used to long journeys and the kids are comfortable enough relaxing in the back seats. We'd packed a picnic for the car to save time. When we arrived, we met up with our friends Sian, Callum, Lila and Daisy, who I'm sure a lot of you watching this video will already know as Napoli Ever After. They've got some great vlogs of this trip and we'll link those in the comments below this video. We got the kids to bed, ready for the next day and the journey on to Bruges. We spent the night at the Premier in Folkestone, so we were ready to go the next morning as it's only around 5 minutes from the Channel Tunnel. It's a really cheap and convenient option. It was only around £40 for a family room. We had an early train booked at around 9 AM, but we arrived early and were able to board an even earlier train. Using the Eurotunnel in your own car is such an easy way to travel. After a quick 30-minute crossing, we were on the road and arrived in Bruges around an hour 20 minutes later. The drive itself was so easy and quick. It was motorways all the way and we arrived just before lunchtime. There were no tolls to pay, which made a nice change from our usual drives in France. We wanted to make the most of our time, so we parked up at the train station on the edge of town. Bruges isn't great to drive around, with it being mostly narrow cobbled streets, so there are various park and ride car parks around the city with details on the Visit Bruges website. We settled on the station car park as it was relatively large, close to our accommodation and only €2.50 to park for the whole day. There are also free buses going back and forth into the centre, but it's only a 20-minute walk to the central market square, so it was really easy to get in and out of. To get us started, as we hadn't yet got our bearings and to save the kids' legs, we decided to jump in a taxi to the market or the main square, and all 8 of us got there for €16, which seemed reasonable. The market was lovely, with the Belfort on one side and wonderful buildings and architecture all around. It's also the site of the main Christmas market, so we spent an hour or two having some lunch, some drinks and treats and browsing the stalls, just taking in the really Christmassy atmosphere. We also wandered over to the other main square adjacent called the Berg, which includes the City Hall, and at this time of year it also has a beautiful Christmas tree. The kids loved exploring and enjoyed some treats from the chocolate shops and Christmas markets. One of the top things to do in Bruges is climb the Belfort, and 4 of our group, Sian, Callum, Greg and Finley, decided that they were up for the challenge. Tickets can be booked in advance, but we walked up on the day and were able to get tickets for around an hour later. These were €14 each for an adult and €12 each for children over 6. Everyone thought the climb itself was really fun, if not a little hard work. Finley, who's age 7 in particular, loved the challenge and made the climb no problem, certainly better than all of the adults. There are 366 steps in all winding stairs narrowing nearer the top. However, there are a couple of points where you can stop off for a quick rest and to take a look around. The view from the top was spectacular and well worth the effort getting there. Word of warning though, it's a bell tower and the bell is absolutely deafening if you're next to it when it rings. Greg and Finley found this out and I think they've just about recovered from the shock now. They were up and down in around 30 minutes and then we all met up again at the bottom. I'd spent some time with the girls exploring the square and we found a small carousel behind the Tourist Information Centre in the square that all of the kids loved. Back together, we wandered back over to the Berg and through a lovely little passage called Blind Ezelstraat. I'm going to apologise for my pronunciation now as it'll only get worse as this video goes on. This took us onto a bridge where we found a dock where some of the boat trips go from. There are several of these docks throughout the city and I think all of them follow the same route around the canals. We took the opportunity to jump on a tour for €14 per adult and €7 per child for around a 30-minute trip. The boat took us all over the city, seeing areas we wouldn't have reached otherwise. This was one of our highlights of the trip, and it was lovely to see the city from this perspective, and it's something we'd highly recommend for all of the family. We spent the rest of the afternoon wandering around the lovely cobbled streets, and the kids loved getting to spend their pocket money at all of the little gift shops. We of course also stopped to get a picture at the famous view of Rosehood Quay, or Rosary Quay in the English translation, before we stopped for tea. Having rested our legs and gotten our bearings a little, we wandered back to the train station and the car park. It was only a 15-minute walk, and it was through lovely quaint streets the whole way. There was also a Winter Glow-Ed, or Winter Glow in English, event being held, which included several light installations scattered throughout the city. We managed to see a few of these on our way back, as well as the beauty of the old city lit up at night. It's worth noting we felt really safe throughout our whole trip, even wandering around the city at night. The streets were well lit and extremely clean. Our Airbnb was only an 8-minute drive away, and I'll give you a bit more information on this later on in the video, but we were back at a decent time to let the kids explore and play before getting a fairly early night. The next day we had a lazy morning as we wanted to let the kids rest and enjoy the house. We headed out late morning, parking again at the station, and this time we made the short walk over to the Minnewater park, where a floating ice rink and bar had been set up for the winter season. This was probably the kids' highlight of the trip, and we all had loads of fun skating for what must have been well over an hour. Tickets are untimed, they don't need to be booked in advance, and they cost €7 per person. There were also skating aids for the kids while they got used to the ice, which helped them get started. Try not to look too closely though, or you'll realise this picture perfect ice rink is actually made of plastic. Having worked up an appetite at the ice rink, we wandered into town to find some lunch, catching some of the sights along the way. We walked through the Begijnhof, just a few photos here as filming wasn't allowed, and we also had to remain silent, which wasn't too easy for the little ones. We also saw the famous white swans and had time for a few more shops for the kids on the way. The cafe we were aiming for was called That's Toast, which we'd read about online, and it had really good gluten-free and vegan options. But when we arrived, the queue was out of the door, so we had to settle for a quick McDonald's in the end, much to the kids' delight. It was absolutely packed, but it was the prettiest building I've ever seen a McDonald's in before. There were lots of different levels, and we managed to get seats by going all the way to the top floor. Afterwards, we spent some time enjoying the second Christmas market in Bruges at Simon Stevenplein. We had some snacks, we browsed the stalls, and we enjoyed the atmosphere. We spent the rest of the afternoon shopping, including visiting the wonderful chocolate line shop for yet more Belgian chocolate, and we wandered the beautiful streets. We had planned to visit the Choco Story attraction for the kids, but unfortunately it was all booked up. However, we did manage to catch a few more sights, stopping by the Church of Our Lady Bruges, which is the second tallest brick church in the world, and had a quick stop at the bridge just behind, at what our boat tour guide had called the Kissy Kissy Bridge when we went under it the previous day. If we'd had a bit more time, we probably would have visited the museum in the church, as it's home to Michelangelo's Madonna and Child sculpture, but unfortunately we'd run out of time, and to be honest, it's probably not something the kids would have appreciated. There were lots of pictures and replicas of this in the gift shops, and the little ones laughed at it every time as they just thought it looked a bit rude. We rounded the night off and our time in Bruges with tea in the market before wandering back to the station, taking one last look at the beautiful streets. The next morning we were up early for our drive back, but it was more than worth it, having had an absolutely fantastic weekend. So that was our weekend in Bruges, and now we'll take you through some of the more practical bits and what went into making it happen. First off, why Bruges? Well, basically because we were asked. Sian and Callum were already planning a weekend trip and asked if we wanted to come along with them, so we thought why not. However, Bruges was already on our radar as we were supposed to visit there during the pandemic on our way to Efteling in the Netherlands, but unfortunately we went back into lockdown, so we had to cancel. We knew it would be a lovely break, so we took the opportunity when it came up. It was close enough that we could squeeze it in over a weekend and on a relatively small budget. We've done quite a few trips with the naps now, and we know how well these work as everyone gets on so well, so it would be a shame to have missed this opportunity. So that brings me to cost. As this was an extra trip, we didn't have a big budget. Fortunately, Bruges was within driving distance, so we were able to use the Channel Tunnel, which is a great low budget option. Sian and Callum had some vouchers that we were able to use, so it cost us very little, but a normal return crossing is somewhere in the region of £150. In terms of accommodation, the Premier Inn cost around £40 for the night, and our Airbnb cost £555 for the weekend, so split between us it was £278 per family. We thought this was great value for the standard of accommodation that we enjoyed. In terms of spending money, we probably spent around £300 on food and sightseeing over the weekend, plus a bit extra for souvenirs and then petrol on top. Overall, we found everything in Bruges to be really reasonably priced. The parking was a bargain, the meals out were reasonable, and the sightseeing costs, including the Belfort, boat trip and ice skating, were all lower than expected and cheaper than anything we'd normally pay for the UK equivalent. We also found the Christmas markets to be relatively cheap too, especially when compared to those in the UK. Just as an example, mulled wine cost around €5, whereas in the Manchester Christmas markets this was twice as much. Moving on to our accommodation, we stayed in an Airbnb in Lopham, just outside of Bruges. The link is in the description below. It was just an 8-minute drive from the station car park along the road out of Bruges into the suburbs. We'd looked at hotels but found there wasn't a wonderful selection available, and as we were in a big group, we wanted somewhere we could relax together. We certainly didn't regret our decision as the house was perfect for our needs. It was a 4-bedroomed house which had 1 bedroom on the ground floor, and then 1 main bathroom and 1 downstairs toilet. The living area was huge and everything was nicely decorated, modern and really well kept. There was also a nice big garden for the kids to run around in, and it was set on a really peaceful, safe street. All in all, we felt we got a steal for the price we paid and couldn't recommend this highly enough. We'd love to return one day and enjoy Bruges again. With it being so close to Calais, I'm sure we'll be back again in the future. So that's our trip to Bruges. We hope this was useful for your trip, and if you've got any questions or other tips, then please let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of our trips. Thank you so much for watching.